It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays. And today we are talking a snapshot in moral reasoning. And this was an interesting. I like to do experiments. I'm science minded. I don't assume I know it all. And I like to do experiments on things. And one experiment I did recently had an interesting result. And before I get into it, I want to do the help support this channel, because if you like this sort of content, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. Also, tomorrow is the official launch of Mecha Jesus and Other Stories. I'll put the link in the description box below, but I'm hosting the launch. I wrote the foreword to the book, so if you want whimsical, quirky, serious, eldritch, kind of tweaking at religion, but ultimately very affirming of humanity, check out Mecha Jesus and Other Stories. It's a great anthology, and support indie and small press endeavors. So yes, the experiment, because I made a choice about something. Someone I know did a bad, and I made a choice about how to handle it, and I decided to just make him stop, but keep it quiet. Don't publicly expose the guy. I don't like canceling people. But then I started second guessing myself and thinking, is this actually cowardice masquerading as ethics? Am I just making excuses for not doing the hard, correct thing? And so I did a Twitter poll, which is no proof of ethics. It's just, do I is this the minority opinion as opposed to something common? And it turns out that no, I actually am in the majority in terms of what I would do here, which I don't know if is reassuring and disappointing. Now, okay, this is Twitter, this is my following, and it's only 137 votes, but still, it's, if a friend did something you believe is morally terrible, would you expose them publicly or just make them stop and keep it private? And you can see it's pretty decisive. I added a neither because it's conflict, because I thought that made it more accurate reflection of things, to give people the but option. I try to do that when I do this stuff, even though it's completely unscientific. But 77.4% of people that follow my content based on 137 votes would just make them stop. They'd make the same choice I did. No, I don't know why, but another game dev of mine said, I have this as a trolley problem question in the psychophile section of my game, and I'm currently experiencing it. Well, let me know what you come up with. And ultimately, I thought I had to admit the only reason I haven't said anything is it won't actually make it stop. It'll put me under the microscope, as well as the person who did it and everybody else involved, and it won't actually prevent them or discourage them or raise awareness of them doing it again. It is the sort of thing where everybody could know and they could still pull shenanigans, right? But then I thought I'd change the question slightly, trolley problem style, right? Because the whole thing about a trolley problem is you add a variable and see if that changes the result. So I did a new poll, and only 67 people voted, but the results changed. And this was consistent throughout the day that the poll was live. So what I changed it to is the entire question remained the same, except, if a friend did something you believe is morally terrible, would you expose them publicly or just make them stop and keep it private? If it was possible, you and your other friends would get blamed for what he did. And it went from 77.4 come on, thing. There we go. 77.4%. Just make them stop. It changed to whoop. All of a sudden, the majority was expose. And, it's not as strong a majority as keep quiet. Still a sizable minority said they'd still keep quiet or can't with conflict. And I do like the conflict as a control here, because that only changed by like 1.2%. So there we go. But the fact that it was that big, and then we get into speculating why. And, again, it does make the morality of this challenging, right? Because this is just, people only care when it's about cover your ass. And I thought in my case, no, because it's a question of I can't stop them. So the only reason to go public with it is to make it clear I do not agree with what he's doing. Doesn't necessarily mean I'd be believed is the thing, and I'm aware of that. But I did find the shift very, very, very interesting. And this is when a lot of people would speculate. And I'm like, instead, I'm going to use it as a point of personal meditation. Why would it be different? Because obviously I made that change to see if it would be different. If I didn't think it was possible to be different, I wouldn't put up the new poll. And it's funny, the guy who inspired this assumed that this meant I was planning to go public. Boy, was he wrong. And this is why he got blocked. But it was more questioning my own moral decision making. And it was a process of, can I live with this choice, or am I going against my values? And, the fact that being in the majority the first time didn't comfort me. It's an element of character. I admit, when I saw him in the majority, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Like, it made me question myself more. Changing the variable was insightful, because it's like, does this do any good? Probably not. It will cause a whole bunch of crap. And because of the nature of it won't necessarily prevent it. It's just, new group, same tactics, but the fact that the shift of, if you think you and your other friends would get blamed for what he did, all of a sudden there's the urge to get out in front of it. And I admit part of the reason I cut off contact was that concern, which is why I added it, that, it is the sort of thing, because it involves dubious treatment of women. Obviously, that ain't great for the kind of stuff I do. And, it's not great in general. But I thought, would getting out in front of it work? And I realized probably not, because then you get into the, how did you know about this? You're just covering your own ass. People, once you put something out in public, people can spin it any way they want. And this is why this reaffirmed my lack of belief in call out culture and cancel culture. I don't think it teaches anybody anything. And it was interesting to be in the shoes of the potential canceller here, the potential whistleblower, and think, will this do any good? Because these sorts of stories are everywhere now. And I see how people who talk about this stuff are torn apart because you're ruining the guy's life. And people would believe what they want to believe based on who they like better. And that is the challenging reality of this stuff, that the average person is no better than chance at determining whether someone is telling the truth or a lie. And this guy's he lies so much he doesn't realize he's lying anymore. Unfortunately, that was one of the problems. And he has a justification for everything he does. And because he really believes his own bullshit, some people are going to believe him, no matter how many facts. Once you start dumping chat logs, people just a pox on both your houses. This stuff doesn't work. It doesn't keep anybody safer. It doesn't keep communities any better. I will say, though, that if you are a part of any allegedly all something group, in this case, all women's group on social media, assume there are some men there pretending to be women, because there are. And I think that's the better thing to put out. That's the more productive thing. That don't assume that you can do that online unless you can see everybody's face. Then you don't know. And I described it to the guys. What you're doing is a turf fever dream. And yes, I use the word turf. I'm trying not to do that anymore, gender critical, but that's what I said. Exact quote. But yeah, just public service announcement. Your all something groups, anything that's just a screen name and a picture can be infiltrated. Don't assume it is what the optics are. That's theater. That's it makes you feel better. It is not actually so. And that's what I decided the best thing to do here is make people aware of the practice as opposed to the identity of the person who did it. Because this way it isn't about whether I'm more likable or he's more likable. It's that person you think you're chatting with, and you think they're so great and they're so supportive, but you've never heard their voice or seen a video of them. You can't assume anything. And this is not the first time I've encountered catfishing. I actually, in a couple of the old toy collector groups I was a part of, there were women pretending to be men so they didn't get harassed. And that's seen as less bad, but it is still deceptive. The reasons people do things matter a great deal. And, I'm talking about this on It's Not Therapy this week as well, because it really was a moral conundrum for me. And this is a bit of my process regarding how I decide to take an action I take. And I admit that this is inspired by watching someone I know is telling the truth call somebody out in public, and it got very heated because it's a very toxic social group, online community. And even though she was absolutely telling the truth, I think she ended up, but everybody was a loser. There were no winners. And I don't think that's healing for anybody. It just prolongs the trauma, it prolongs the abuse. And I don't think any amount of call outs stop a bad actor, especially a person who the problem is deception and taking advantage of other people. no amount of public awareness can really stop that from happening. So it's a question of, how do I keep my conscience clear and not being complicit in it? Because let's face it, that's the real concern. If the primary hinge of to expose or not to expose is, well, me and my other friends get in trouble, right? If you think it's bad enough that you don't want to get that on you, are you being complicit by staying quiet? And that's the part that was really, really nagging at me. And that's why I decided, okay, inform people of the behavior so it doesn't get into personality politics. Just let people know this thing that you think is a closed loop, this thing you think is an all women space or an all men space, or all cat space, all something space. If it's Facebook, if it's Reddit, you really don't know. So what's the benefit of it? Does it just make you feel better to think those are all women or all men or all cats destroying my stuff? If it just makes you feel better, if it's like, well, if they're pretending to be women, they have to shut up. Okay. If that's all you need, that's cool. But if you really think that the people there are your friends, they're not. They're not. A real friend will, has a face and has a voice and has an identity you can verify, as opposed to a whole bunch of details that, and I mean, one of the breakdowns is whether the relationships, the feeling of closeness that these women felt toward the catfisher, were real. And, I never intended to do this. There was nothing on my end. It doesn't matter if they're asking you to hang out in real life, there is a bond there. There isn't the belief that there is a friendship there. That's bullshit. And this is why, I have to accept this guy is probably going to do it again. And I can't do anything about it because he's already been canceled once for similar kind of behavior. And, I believed he'd been hard done by and treated unfairly. And hey, maybe he was. I don't know. I wasn't there. But in this case, he was dead wrong. And people like this can always find a new group to pity them and give them a chance. And that's not the fault of the group. That is the fault of the people doing the deception. And that I believe to be true, that if someone is like, we verify identities on the Discord precisely for this reason. So this doesn't happen. It's either an invite from someone who can vouch and is accountable if they're wrong, or it's have something with a credit card to show that you are a real person. Not infallible, but we just did a sweep recently of, accounts that we asked them to please tell us what service you came through, and they never got back to us. It's like, okay, fine. These could just be dormant accounts or duplicates. No problem. Great. If so, no harm, no foul, but these could be people lurking, for potentially nefarious reasons. So, because that's a very minimal. Which service did you come through? Coffee or Patreon? That's not hard. And if they can't do that, and again, not foolproof, but we at least do some due diligence. And a Facebook group probably isn't in doing that. Certainly not something with like 500 members. So buyer beware with these groups. If you don't care that guys are watching you dunk on your shitty dates, or just guys you're mad at and want to get back at, you do you. But if you feel like it's a safe space where there's no judgment, there are guys there making fun of you with their friends. So if this bothers you, and some people may go good, they deserve it. They shouldn't be cutting guys up like that. That's humiliating a dude. You're entitled to that opinion. I'm just letting people know because it crossed a line for me and I didn't feel like I could say nothing, but I can't violate my values in that I don't believe in cancel culture. I don't. I can't use something I disagree with when it's convenient for me. Whether I think there's liability for me here or not. At this point, there's not because, I've I've tried to put out a warning. And it was, this is the same thing I went through knowing what Joss Whedon's deal was, and some of the others and some of the things that haven't come to light yet. Like, you can't do anything about them because you don't have enough direct evidence. But it's very hard to sit there and just do nothing and let people get exploited. And this is not anywhere close to the order of magnitude of this. But I did think it was interesting that comparing people's reactions to see how I felt about the different reactions helped me get in touch with my own values and ultimately decide to take the course of notifying people about the behavior instead of calling out the person. And I can live with this. So that's a snapshot into my moral dilemma. Of course, the guy was trying to talk his way into the book launch tomorrow. That did not go over well with me, as you can imagine. But yeah, just things on the pile. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. But I've made this video just to give you an example of moral decision making and how it's not simple, and snap judgments don't do anybody any good. So if you found this helpful to your own moral decision making, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. Both of these get you access to our Discord where we do vet people. That, it's not complete, but you have a lot of the people we do know and talk to and have verified as humans. So if you're looking for that kind of space, a good group of people. We're fun. We're really fun. Thanks for watching and be well.